Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time seeing me, my name is Kaylee. I am a painter and graphic novelist, and I'm using this series as a way to document the process of completing my second graphic novel. What I like to do is go through each page that I completed this month, talk a little bit about what it means and the process of making it, anything that I was struggling with or that I figured out along the way that might be helpful. Art is my main method of expressing things that I care about the most and finding ways of speaking about them, of documenting them for myself, and of basically expressing how much they mean to me. I'm going to do the same thing in these videos and use these pages as an excuse to talk to you about some things that I find interesting, some things that I've been thinking about, talking about with my friends. I don't usually choose a focused topic to discuss, but I thought today, since it's the top of the year still, it's the end of January 2025, and a lot of people are still talking about New Year's goals, resolutions, that sort of thing. I thought maybe we'll talk a bit more about that as we go through these pages and also after we're done with them. So in my creative life, depending on how I've approached productivity and meeting my goals and how I'm going to meet them, what methods, what ways, how I treat myself while I am striving towards goals has either made the creative process miserable and like desolate, or made it an extremely prolific and productive space. In the past, especially in my early 20s, I've thought that I could just cut off my pleasure in the process of things and my work wouldn't be affected. I thought that I could power through things for the sake of meeting goals, and then I realized that the whole point of having a goal in the first place was because I want enjoyment and happiness and fulfillment for myself, and those are things that I can access anytime I am deeply involved with my creative practice. I'm extremely passionate about contributing to people believing that having a creative practice is something that is accessible to them. We're going to talk more about that later on, but first let's get into these pages that I did this month. My goal was to do 5. I met that goal. So we're going to be hopping around a little bit because I redid some pages and I added some pages at random points in the story. If you haven't seen one of these videos before, this story is basically a painted memoir, surreal, very surreal memoir of my high school years. Like I've said in previous videos, I think that middle school and high school are the years where socialization really starts getting into us. Society's ideas about how we're supposed to act and talk, dress, present ourselves, etc., they really start to hit our inner worlds. That is when I really began to mask who I was and change myself on the outside because I believed that what I was on the inside was just not going to be understood by anyone else. This first one actually goes with our topic really well today because this is kind of the opposite of productivity. If you've seen my previous video, you might recognize this image, but it's actually a completely different painting. Let me show you. Okay, so this was what I had done, and this is the new one. Hopefully you can see. I was going through a bunch of pages at the end of the year with my fiance, and he was like, I just think that this hand could be like more in a style that I had painted in before. There are some symbols in this painting that harken back to an earlier volume of this graphic novel series, and I wanted that connection to be made. He suggested, maybe work more in that style. Like there is sort of a delicate shading style that I just didn't really get in this previous one. So I decided to do it over. When I was working on my first graphic novel, if you had told me that I would have to redo one because it wasn't just quite right, I would have been like, no, because then I'm off schedule. I think that sometimes the idea of productivity and the idea of creating tangible goals, while that is very important, and I love doing that, don't get me wrong, sometimes, at least for me, I've fallen into the trap of just wanting the numbers. What's changed for me, I think the reason that I'm able to redo things because they're not just quite right is because I have faith that I'll be able to complete the project this time. When I think about it, the reason that I was so strict with myself at the beginning was because I had no idea if I would even be able to create a graphic novel. I'd never done it before. It was so new. I had no idea how to even go about it. and I just knew that I really wanted to create this book and this story, and I wanted to rush a little bit because I was afraid that what I was thinking in my head would disappear. I was scared that I would just run out of inspiration, or I would just run out of momentum, and that period would be over without finishing the story that I needed to tell, if that makes sense. This page in itself, I'm so much more happy with. I'm so glad that I redid it. If you looked at them side by side really fast, you'd be like, girl, that is the same image. What are you doing? Every time I complete something, I want to be able to look at it and say, yes, that is the best that I can do at this moment. I don't expect perfection from myself, but I do expect hard work and integrity when it comes to what I am creating, especially because this story is so personal. I'm so glad that I ended up redoing it, and it was not a waste of time in the slightest. See, they're similar, but they're not the same. Don't be afraid to redo things until you're happy with them. There's no greater feeling than creating something that you're proud of. The narration reads, "Years had gone by in my absence." And the context for this is that the protagonist is in this dreamy inner world space, and she finds a spray can on the ground. So everything's overgrown. The building is overgrown. We'll come to it in a second. And she also finds under these vines a tag, like a graffiti tag of something that she painted before that she doesn't remember. So let's go to the next one. In the last video, I'm pretty sure I had sort of drafted the outline of this, but I was like, I'm gonna come back to this later. So this is her going into this abandoned, overgrown building. Oh my god. I just get so excited when I think of abandoned buildings. I'm so obsessed with them. If you're interested in seeing more like this, check out my previous video. I'll have it linked down below, because that's where we really get into the pages where this is represented. This was just sort of one that I skipped over in the story. She's going into this building. There's a door. If you're curious about the materials that I use, they're listed down below in the description. What I used for the fluffy leaf texture was Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. This is it. I love it. I talk about it all the time. And the other thing that I use is, I don't use ink, I use watercolor concentrate. So these are like the two things that I use most often, and then I just use 2 brushes and yeah, that's about it. A pen. A pen and a pencil, and these 2 things. What else did I do? So these are all the panels that I went over in the last video. I think that this is what we left off on last time. We left off on this image. I felt very lonely in a body. It has shown previously the protagonist exploring this building, walking up the stairs, and now she's standing at the window here, and you can see the little shadow of her figure, and now it's within the head of the protagonist, showing that it's her inner world. It's not a real place. How do I describe this in a way that's not like convoluted? Basically, before she's encountered this inner place, she's by herself holding this mask, and she's deciding whether or not she's going to put it on. And before she decides, she goes into herself and she's exploring this world. So that's where we left off. Now the next one, oh, sorry about the dog. So the next one is a close-up of the image previously, and then her hands holding the mask as she was sort of deliberating to put it on, to not put it on. And as she holds the mask, the inner worlds, that building, starts to fade. I really like this technique, and I want to do it more. This kind of fading. Watercolor can really accomplish that well. So this was a lot of fun. Oh yeah. Of the pages I did this month, this was definitely my favorite. In the background here, we have the mask, and the narration reads, "All I recognized were my eyes." We've got her looking up. What's about to be revealed is that she's looking into a mirror. The thing that I like about doing a graphic novel, especially one that's very surreal and dreamlike, is that it allows me to play with like form and elements and what's going on without actually having to provide context all in one page, because the context is coming next. It'll also add more weight to the previous pages that didn't have that context. So in the future, we'll find out that that's her looking into the mirror, and that's her mirror image looking back sort of entreatingly, like, please don't put that shit on. And then we come back to her, but this time with a mask on, and she can no longer see. Something that I was a little nervous about when I started the second book is handling disturbing content and handling disturbing concepts in a way that still represents them as ultimately loving. Still picking out the love from those things without shying away from the fact that they're disturbing, you know? I didn't want to make anything that would be shocking for the sake of being shocking or creepy just to lend something some style, you know? Like, I want everything to be extremely intentional and handled very well. It's about to get even more into just the idea of putting this shell over yourself, thinking that you have to go around operating like a shell. I think that that's something that a lot of us can relate to. I don't want to shy away from the fact that I did it. I don't want to shy away from the fact that it happened in my life. Okay. I could ramble on forever. Yes, we have introduced the mask back into here, and she's now put it on. And I'm really excited to do the next pages that I've storyboarded out. I'm so excited. I think they're going to be sick. All right. So I've already cut some pages for next week. That's what these blank pages are. And, all right. So let's see. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4. So now for the last one, the 5th one, let's witness my failure. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm just kidding. So this is one that I did in February, I think. Yeah. So I did this one in February 2024 and really loved it almost a year ago. As I was looking back, doing sort of a year in review at the end of December, I was making notes to myself and seeing, just based on how the story is flowing, are there any things that I want to add in? And I decided that I just liked this concept so much that I wanted to add a page after it to just extend the concept. It shows an eye, and in the eye, very dimly, are some hands, and they get more and more clear. I decided that I wanted to add another page just to show these hands on their own underwater. This idea that there's something ancient and sunken that is just waiting for you, not in a creepy way. The idea of your deep self, your inner self that knows everything, that knows you, and is just infinitely patient and never judging you. That type of idea. So here's what I decided to add. Just a full-size painting showing those hands and showing like little schools of fish. I thought that that would add depth and just show how big they are, like scale. And yeah, just show them like deep and sunken. Now, the reason I say let's witness my failure is because I'm not happy with how this came out, but I am really glad that I tried it, and I think that I'm going to try and redo this and just see what I can add to make it more effective and impactful. So it's all good. I don't think this will be included in the actual book, but I'm happy I tried it out, and I do like the idea itself. Something that I have really hammered home to myself and that I want to hammer home to you is that the idea itself is something that should be treasured and cherished just as much as the outcome of that idea. If you didn't have the idea in the first place, you would never be able to finish the work of art that you're going to finish and you're going to be proud of and really happy with. I know for me, when I get an idea, immediately I'm like, wait, it's not finished. Like, I will think of something that I could do, and I will think to myself, why didn't I do it yesterday? You know, and I've just gotten the idea, which is not a sustainable or healthy attitude. I really want to slow down, celebrate the fact that I've had an idea I'm excited about, maybe storyboard it or something if I'd like to, but just relax and be happy that I have the idea at all. Nothing that I've ever created would be possible without that first idea. I've been thinking about this a lot actually this month because I've been shipping out and distributing my first graphic novel. If you've seen my other videos, then you know it was something that took me 6 years to do. it was just a crazy dream. Like, I had no reason to believe that I would be able to complete it. No reason to believe that I would be able to work up my skills and just technical abilities in order to represent what I saw in my head. But I did know that I cared about nothing more than to create this story and to represent it and just learn how to do it. I didn't really care. I was like, what I'm doing looks like crap right now. I hate it, but I know that I'm going to get to the point that I need to get to, because there's no other explanation why I would be receiving these ideas if I wasn't meant to learn how to carry them out. And coming back to our topic of productivity and goal setting and all this as a creative person, I love having tangible goals for myself. But at the same time, I want to make sure that as I'm working towards those goals, I'm really appreciating the person who is showing up for those goals. You know, it's not the version of me that is now distributing my book that I'm thankful for. It's the person who had the idea to write it in the first place and stopped at nothing to finish it. It's the version of you that has the idea and the version of you that is working to get there. That is so valuable. If you are working on a project, or maybe you even just had an idea for one and you haven't even started, you as you are right now and that idea as it is right now is extremely valuable and contains in it, you know how they say like every acorn contains a mighty tree. Like there's something to be said for the acorn stage, and we really need to be valuing the acorn stage more. Ever since 2018, I have been dreaming about having my graphic novel out, stamping it with a wax seal, going to visit high schools and colleges to talk to students about their creative practice and what it took to develop my own. I've been dreaming about these things. I've been visualizing them for so long. And now that I'm here and I'm able to have this new insight, I realize that I was absolutely correct in thinking my future self is going to be so grateful for what I'm doing now. And the reason that that was like groundbreaking for me at the time was because in 2018, when I started working on this graphic novel series, I was not good. I'm not trying to downplay myself or like try and be fake humble or anything. Like, I was not good. And I knew it, but I also knew that there was no way to get to where I wanted to be except to just keep going. And there were so many times that I just had to write in my journal kind of like a mantra, like keep going. And I had no idea if I would be able to continue, because just crazy things happen in life. As you know, you're living life. Really crazy things happen. Huge roadblocks happen. Grief happens. Loss happens. All of these things. And the reason that I knew that I needed to keep going with this project was because the process of making it never hurt me. And the process of making it helped me get through every other difficult event and difficult emotion that I was experiencing in my life. That was the reason that I kept going, because I found a way of creating something and coming back to it over and over again that helped me live my life and helped me survive and helped me just continue to want to live. I'm already like on the verge of tears again. Just thinking about it, but there's a reason that I'm very passionate about this. I didn't just want to make something for myself. I wanted to have something that I would be able to share. Not just a physical book, but also experience and tools and strategies that I could share that would be useful and of service. Clearly this matters a lot to me, and maybe it's cringe, but if I leave anyone with any impression, I just hope it's the impression of whatever it is that you want to do, like you can pursue a dream that makes no sense to anyone else. I started this project when I did not want to live. Having a creative practice all these years has saved my life. I want to leave you with some tangible habits that I use to just help me maintain a creative practice, especially when you have another job and you have other responsibilities, that sort of thing. The first one is very small, but I feel like the impact is pretty big. What I do is I try to set up a clean desk every single night. Even if I've been painting and I just want to go to bed or something, I try and wash my brushes, which of course you should always do. I will set up a clean palette and all of the art materials that I'm going to need for the next day. This signals to myself that even if I'm tired coming home from work the next day, there's literally nothing getting in my way of just sitting down and even doodling or doing something like that. I'm removing any barriers that I would get tripped up on if I wasn't in the mood to create. Everything's already right there for me. So that's something that might be helpful to you. Just try and see if you can set up a little space, a little area, if you have your own desk. If you don't have your own desk, get all of the materials that you might want to use, your pens, your pencils, whatever. Get it in a small little bag or something, and that way you can just grab it and go. Make sure that your sketchbook or something that you use to create, just have that on you at all times. Another thing that I try and do is, if it's possible with your work schedule or your school schedule, I try and wake up so that I have at least 30 minutes in the morning or an hour in the morning, just a couple days a week, where before I give my energy to my job or anything else that might be asked of me, I wake up, get some water, get some breakfast, and immediately just come to my desk and do some painting. I don't have to have completed anything by the end of that hour or that 30 minutes. That helps me remember and prove to myself that I value my creative practice, and it's something that I just enjoy the process of doing. I don't need an outcome or some tangible thing to be accomplished. I just need that space set aside to experience it. Every time I do that and I go into work and I feel so good, it's like racking up evidence for your brain that it's something you enjoy and that empowers you and that calms you down. So I know that when I do that, my days are always a lot better moving forward. Like I said in my previous video, one of my big goals for this year is to finish my second graphic novel. I have an estimate of how many pages left I'm going to need, and that's not because I have storyboarded it all. It's just because I know that the last book that I had done was like 80 to 90 pages. I think the second book will probably be in that range, if not a bit more. Based off of that, seeing as how I have about 50 pages already, I know that if I set myself the goal of completing 5 pages a month, I will still account for having a month off if that happens, which it always ends up happening, like life happens, you know. I've still accounted for that happening, and I've also accounted for at least 1 week out of each month not being able to focus on painting. For example, this week I did not do any of these pages. I did them in the first 3 weeks of the year because I'm working on a commission and I'm also finishing my Kickstarter distribution for everyone who ordered my first graphic novel. So it just was not feasible for me to schedule in another thing on top of all that this week. And having a pace of 5 paintings a month allows me that lenience. In a nutshell, that advice was just don't set yourself up for failure. You know, overscheduling yourself, especially around a project or something that you're a little bit unsure of or not like 100% confident in. That's like a surefire way to make yourself even more insecure, because so many times I would set up all these goals for myself with a creative project, be like, by Wednesday I'm going to be done with this, by Thursday this, and if I did not meet those goals, which weren't even thoughtfully made, I just decided that by a particular arbitrary day I wanted it done. When I didn't meet those goals, I was so disappointed in myself, and for what? You know, like, things will end up getting done how they get done. I just want to really enjoy the process of making something that I know will be an inevitable success. That mindset is actually what gets me through a lot of long projects. Believing and just actually knowing that the outcome will inevitably be successful and something that I love makes me question why I wouldn't enjoy every step of the process getting there. If I'm going to be celebrating the outcome of something, the fruition of something, the way that I'm celebrating now being done with my first graphic novel and shipping it out and stuff like that, wouldn't it just be more fun to also have celebrated every day along the way of making it? If you think about it, your life passes anyway. The time passes anyway. So you might as well enjoy that life passing. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I hope that maybe this week you can find some time to get into your creative practice, whatever that is, or start one. If you feel motivated by watching other people be productive in their creative work, I post a lot of my process on my Instagram stories, and I also do in-depth posts on my Patreon. So everything will be linked down below. Like I've said many times, it is my passion and my pleasure to be able to share my creative practice alongside of you, to learn from each other, to inspire one another to create, and to encourage each other. That's my goal. If you have any questions for me or want to share your own productivity hacks or goals for your creative practice this year, or ways that you like to stay creative, please let us know in the comments below. I will see you in a video soon. Take care.